this first video in a series about sovereign chess. My name is Mark Bates. I am the creator of Sovereign Chess, and I wanted to put out a number of videos here looking at different aspects of the game as people have asked me questions or have come to look at it for the first time. This first video is about opening theory, just some of the common openings that I've seen as people have learned to play sovereign chess, maybe some strategies that work well for them. Of course, one of the questions that I get from many people, many regular chess players who see sovereign chess for the first time, is how do I even begin a game of sovereign chess? They look at all of the larger board, the colored squares in the middle of the board. They look at the colored pieces around the side and just not necessarily sure how to start. But of course, what I like to remind people is that in a game of sovereign chess, each player, white and black, have a traditional complement of pieces, all the same pieces you'd see on a regular chessboard. And so therefore, theoretically, at the beginning of the game, you have the same 20 opening moves that you would have in a traditional chess match. Of course, with each of your pawns, you could move one or two squares forward. Since you have 8 pawns, there's 16 different ways of opening pawn movement. And of course, you have your knights that can move to either one of 2 opening squares. So that leads us to kind of the traditional 20 moves of any chess match. Now, of course, we know that in traditional chess, those 20 opening moves aren't just used in kind of any kind of random variation there. Most players will start with one of 2 moves. They'll either move the king pawn up 2 squares, what we often call pawn to king 4, or the queen pawn similarly. And both of those, while they're strong opening moves in traditional chess with a smaller board, they control the center of the board. They're not necessarily bad moves in sovereign chess. Opening up either of these pawn moves as your first move there clearly leads you to try to get to that square, that first colored square there. So if you're opening with the king pawn, that would be the pink square here on I6. If you were opening with the queen pawn, that would of course be the purple square on my board H6 here. And there are a couple of other benefits from some of these opening pawn movements. By opening with the king pawn here for white, you also have the option on the second move of moving out the queen directly to the red square, so you can control a color on the second move. You also have the option of maybe opening up with one of these bishops here. While you can't control a color directly, you have the option of moving it here to g4, which of course would allow you to perhaps go to the pink square, or maybe even out here to d7, which would give you a number of different options along this diagonal, where you could control, maybe on the third move, you could control orange, dark gray, what I often call slate, or pink on the other side of the board. So those are some options of opening with the pawn moves. Of course, the opening queen pawn move is a little bit less advantageous in this way. You can still move out the bishop here, but not necessarily the queen. Doesn't really do much for opening that queen there. Now, I will mention another option here as far as pawn movements here is to perhaps start with one of these rook pawns. Not normally a regular move in traditional chess, but clearly moving out, let's say, the queen rook pawn here, or we would say pawn to e4 here on this board. This obviously threatens taking dark blue, or what we often call navy, on the second move by moving out the other pawn here, pawn to l4. This threatens taking the red square as well. And both of those are very strong openings, right? Because you can see that, for example, if I'm threatening the red, to get to the red square, the red armies then can now come out from different parts of the board and threaten other things as well. But another set of moves which isn't often used but can often be very helpful is, for example, moving the knights. Now, you can kind of see here that the knights cannot get to any color in either 1 or 2 moves, but they can get there in 3. And of course, if you move this knight out one move, let's say here to e3, and the second move out here to g4, now you have a very strong position where on its third move, that knight could control any one of three colors, either the blue with the navy on e5, the green on f6, or the purple or the violet square, we might say, on h6. And either of those could be good options as well. And you can see on the other side of the board, you have the knight there on the king side that after two moves will have the same advantageous position. Now, I do want to mention that the squares here, kind of along what would be the sixth rank there on the white side of the board, are also very advantageous because those colors, the green, the violet, the pink, and the yellow squares, control the four different armies that are directly next to the white or the black armies on the board. So if white wants to be aggressive, they can try to control purple, violet, and yellow, which would aggressively attack the black army. If they want to be more defensive, they might go for the green and the pink armies as well. Now, I do want to mention one other option here, which is that if white, let's say, wants to move two squares forward and on their next move advance their pawn and their next move advance the pawn again, not only do they have the option of staying on violet here and controlling the violet armies, but they also have the option of moving into this black 4x4 square. Now remember, when you move into that black 4x4 square, then that allows the player to promote their pawn to a queen. So I have actually seen this in a number of games where people realize, since promotion is faster and more dynamic than in traditional chess, that after 4 moves they can get an extra queen in the middle of the board and then immediately use that to try to threaten the black army. Now, of course, a couple of things here about sovereign chess to just remember as I kind of move this pawn back here is that while white and black are not directly attacking one another in the early moves due to the 8 square limit in sovereign chess, they clearly do affect one another's opening strategies. For example, if white were to move this pawn 2 squares forward to e4, it would probably prevent black from trying to do the same thing on the other side, because that response would almost certainly force white to take navy and kind of leave black out of luck here, right? I mean, black can still move its pawn sideways, as pawns are allowed to do in sovereign chess, but now black can't take advantage of jumping on that army right away. It would seem to slow down their opening progression there. So just some ideas there about sovereign chess. I'm just always curious about what some of your ideas are. You can always feel free to email me at mark@sovereignchess.com. You can, of course, post to Facebook or anyplace else, and I'd love to hear your strategies. Enjoy! Have fun playing sovereign chess.